Come on in, pull up a chair and take a load off, because today I'm going to review and page through Pathfinder Lost Omens Impossible Lands from Paizo Inc. Will you find it nigh impossible to put this source book down once you've picked it up? Or will you be hoping that this lands anywhere but in your role-playing game collection? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, gang, and happy holidays. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. As mentioned in the open, today I am going to review and page through Pathfinder Lost Omens Impossible Lands from Paizo Inc. It's written by Miriam Ahmad, Saif Ansari, Alexandria Bustian, Bashir Gauss, Michelle Jones, TJ Khan, Matt Morris, Dave Nelson, Shiv Ramdas, Mikhail Rikun, Michael Sayer, Tan Shaohan, Ruvaid Verk, Jabari Weathers, and Brian Yaksa. And I apologize, I guarantee I've mispronounced a few of those names. This 344-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $59.99. It is available now. You can grab just the PDF alone for $29.99. Let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Impossible Lands. Few things to mention before we dive on in. First off, the fine folks over at Paizo Inc. were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important that you know that. Also, I'll be staying picture-in-picture, like I normally do. So as we take a look inside, that means I'm going to be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of the book. We're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a very good idea of what's in Impossible Lands, as well as share my thoughts about it as well. So let's dive on in. This is a gazetteer, this is a region guide, but there is plenty of player-facing content in here as well. First thing I do want to talk about is production quality, and I can say that this book should hold up pretty well to repeated use at your game table. Paper stock is decent. It's pretty much the production quality we're used to seeing from Paizo Inc. Pretty darn good. Artwork throughout, there's a few clunkers, but for the most part, it is very solid to spectacular. We've got a lot of artists here who deserve credit for bringing this to life. Of course, if I read their names, it would take me about 5 minutes, and I'd butcher at least half of them. So there is a lot going on in this book. There is tons of content as well. So we've got new peoples that player characters can roll up their characters from. We've got 5 different regions. We've got new gear. We've got a bestiary. We also have new deities that you can incorporate as well. So this is not just a book devoted to what a lot of people like to refer to as fluff. And I know some people dislike that term, but in essence, fluff is simply non-gaming material. It's just background. It's just story. There's tons of that in this, but there is also gameable material as well. So as I mentioned, we've got 5 different regions that we're going to be taking a look at, and it basically makes up the Impossible Lands. And it's called the Impossible Lands because of this just magical war that has gone on for, it was thousands of years between Nex and Geb. And we have the lands of Nex and we have the lands of Geb, which amazingly enough are named after the combatants. And it has been over for about 1,000 years. So it is a time of peace, but it is a tentative peace. And there's also a buffer area between the two regions that has been just devastated and warped by all the magic that had been used. So we're going to start off with a bit of a history of the region, discussing that war. In essence, there's really no good guy or bad guy. They're both pretty much at fault for the thousands of years of fighting. So not only do we have the new peoples that the players can use to make player characters, we also have a section talking about established cultures in Pathfinder and how they're present in the Impossible Lands and how they might be a little bit different in the Impossible Lands as opposed to the rest of Golarion. So as far as our new peoples, we have the Flesh Warp, the Geniekin, the Tiefling, the Goran, which this is a bit longer. Some of these only have a couple of pages devoted to them, and others have a few pages. We have the Kashrishi. This is another one that's got a few pages devoted to it. The Nagaji, which has a few pages. The Vinara, as well as the Vishkanya. And these are very unique, very different, and will provide a lot of new options as far as role-playing. So we get essentially what is a breakdown of these people. And then, of course, we're going to have different ancestry feats as well. So pretty cool. If you're someone who is not overly familiar with Pathfinder and happens to be very familiar with, let's say, the world's oldest role-playing game, and maybe you feel disappointed when they have a new culture that's released and there's only 3 or 4 paragraphs devoted to it in your latest source book or adventure book or what have you, you won't find that with Pathfinder. You'll normally get a good amount of detail so that you can really bring those cultures to life. So the heart of Impossible Lands is the gazetteer, the region guides within. So we do have the 5 different regions. We've got Elkinstar, which is in the Mana Wastes, which is that buffer zone between Nex and Geb. And it is mainly populated by the city-state of Elkinstar City. The Adventure Path Outlaws of Elkinstar is set within this region. It is a 3-chapter adventure path. I know I've had some folks refer to Elkinstar as a steampunk setting. To me, I don't really feel it's steampunk. It's more clockwork and black powder driven, although you can tell from the fashions that it is influenced by the Victorian age, which is traditionally what we find as far as steampunk. Like I said, it's I think black powder is a bigger factor than steam as far as Elkinstar goes. We also have a Dwarven Hold, which has kind of an Asian flavor to it. Now, one thing that you'll notice, especially in Impossible Lands, is each of these regions does have a kind of real world culture that it's inspired by. They're not being appropriated, but you will see that the architecture, the mythology, the fashions are influenced by particular real world areas. So this has, in my opinion, an Asian, kind of a Chinese flavor to it. Then we have Bopan, which I gotta be honest, this is actually the shortest as far as page counts go with these regions. It's probably my least favorite. It's like Fey touched, but to me it almost seems like it's just an excuse to be able to utilize every possible anthropomorphic animal trope you possibly could come up with. And I'm just not a fan of Zootopia meets Pathfinder. Now, that's not to say this section is bad by any stretch. Just not my bag of tricks. So then we have Geb, which the latest Pathfinder adventure path, which is wrapping up this month. That's where that takes place. The Bloodlords adventure path, which Sammy Uhas has reviewed the 5 chapters so far, and we'll have the finale reviewed in the very near future. So this is a land of the undead. And Geb is a necromancer. I guess we'll say he was a necromancer. I don't want to give away any spoilers here. You'll notice I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about some of this stuff too, or a lot of this, because I don't want to ruin the fun for game masters who are discovering all this stuff for the first time. But it's mainly a land of the undead because they were living until they were all killed by a magic spell cast by Nex. And of course, Geb, being a necromancer, raised them all back from the dead. Each of these regions will also have details about various cities within. In fact, Nex is the most detailed. It's got the most page space devoted to it. With, off the top of my head, it's like 3 or 4 cities within. So the land of Geb also happens to be a place where those seeking to learn more about necromancy would be right at home. It's probably the #1 locale to learn about necromancy. Now, that isn't to say the living are unwelcome. They may not be welcomed in with open arms in all regions of Geb, but it is mainly an undead land. And I gotta be honest, it's my favorite region in this book. Then we have Jalmaray, which I don't think that there's been an adventure path set in this. First, I thought this was where the Fists of the Ruby Phoenix adventure path takes place, but it's not. And this has a very, very Indian sort of feel to it. As far as you'll see, the fashions are really influenced. You can see the architecture is very influenced by India as well, as I was saying, the fashions. So something else I think is kind of cool in this region guide is when we get into like the different areas, like the cities and that, we'll get a section which talks about like a year in your life. What is a year like for, say, the average resident? And then we also have another section that talks about what is a typical day like. So gives game masters a better feel. So to kind of throw in some less than, let's say, earth-shattering encounters in that, but to kind of bring the city and that region to life. So then we've got the Mana Waste, which I had pointed out before is where Alkenstar is located. So the inhabitants, the creatures here, have all been affected by all that magic that has been discharged over the centuries between Nex and Geb. So there are areas here where magic doesn't work, or magic is boosted, or maybe magic is not as controllable as usual. So pretty interesting there as well. I know the Mana Wastes were touched on a bit in the Outlaws of Alkenstar adventure path as well. Then we have Nex, Next has kind of a Persian vibe to it to me. And this is actually the largest section of Impossible Lands. And to my knowledge, there is not an adventure path that takes place in Next. So I have a feeling that this is probably going to be the setting of an upcoming adventure path. And I would think one that's relatively long, so maybe a 6-chapter adventure path, because of all the information we get about the different cities, the important cities, and all the cities are unique. That's one of the things I like about this as well, where we have multiple cities in each region, but each of those cities is different. It's not just, oh, well, this is the second largest city in Geb. We also have various different NPCs. We've got artwork throughout about, showing various different NPCs. And a lot of them have little companions, familiars. This is like the one-eye guy. I like this. There's just something about the little one-eyed creature here I kind of get a kick out of. But as I mentioned, we do have a lot of page space that is devoted to the land of Nex. Then we have a section about religion, so we get some new deities, new religions that are utilized, deities which are worshipped in the Impossible Lands. Of course, there are established deities from Golarion that are present as well. And then we're going to finish up with a gazetteer. So we've got quite a few new entries, as well as we have gazetteer entries for each of those new peoples. And then we're going to end up with a glossary and index. And that is what we find in Pathfinder Lost Omens Impossible Lands. Swing it over to the other cameras so I can share my final thoughts, as well as give this a review score. I really like Impossible Lands. Yes, okay, so there's the one region. I don't know if I'd be, doing Zootopia meets Pathfinder. I mean, that's just how I see it. But for the most part, the rest of the book, there is tons of content for you to use. This isn't just the gazetteer. There's all those player options. We've got all those different ancestry feats. We've got new gear. We've got new deities. We got a bestiary. So there's lots going on. And this region is very interesting. The backstory as far as this war that had gone on for thousands of years, that now the two combatants are at relative peace. Fingers crossed that it holds. I really like it quite a lot. And I guess the highest praise I can give a gazetteer or a region book or a setting book is that I'd really like to run some adventures in that setting or region, what have you. And that is the case here. As far as the different companies that are out there that are creating like setting guides and region guides, and yes, I know there's a lot of content that comes out for Pathfinder and Starfinder. And I usually find that they're Lost Omens, like region guides or Lost Omens books. I really like them quite a lot. And right now, in my opinion, the two rather major publishers of role-playing games that are putting out the most interesting settings happen to be Cobalt Press and Paizo Inc. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give Pathfinder Lost Omens Impossible Lands a 9 out of 10. I think it's that good. And I think if you are running Pathfinder, you should add it to your collection. All right, that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review It'll also inform you when my live stream, The Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you won't find here on the YouTube channel, such as Sammy's Pathfinder and Starfinder reviews. This is probably my last video before Christmas, so I do want to wish each and every one of you very happy holidays, regardless of what winter holiday you may celebrate or not. Enjoy. So there's that. And of course, as always, here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.